We are now some 15 days removed from the prank gone wrong, as they tell us. Nashville, Tennessee, in the Urban Air Trampoline and Adventure Park on Old Hickory Boulevard, that led to the death of Timothy Wilks, just 20 years of age. He and a friend, we're told, were brandishing knives. They approached a group of individuals in this parking lot just before 9:30 p.m. David Starnes Jr. was an individual that was in the group that was approached by the knife-wielding Timothy and friend. He pulled out a gun, and in self-defense, he shot Timothy dead. I would love to say that we know more about what went on that night, but we have an initial statement from the police on the 5th of February, and we have nothing else. In fact, the picture of Timothy that had been circulated by virtually everyone online, including myself, and major news outlets. That was the reason I felt it was okay to use it, is because MTV, E! News had circulated this picture. And we come to find out later that it's not Timothy Wilkes. We don't find that out by an official source that comes out right away. We find that out later because the family, the grandmother in particular, did an interview with the Tennessean newspaper.
You never really seen him smile too much. He was always serious. I don't want them to see him as a thug. I don't want them to have any misconception about my grandson. As far as this YouTube stuff, this is something new to me that he was actually into. It's still pretty much a mystery to me. He's let this be a note to really check on what your children are doing. It needs to be awareness now that this is very dangerous.
And was able to set the record straight of who Timothy was. The family of this Timothy Wilkes, outside of a Facebook post, had not been able to get the message out that that wasn't the correct Timothy. And as far as I know, myself and maybe one or two other YouTubers and the Tennessean are the only people that are actually using the correct photo of the young man that died. David Starnes Jr., I have been able to locate who I believe is him. The image is blurred out, of course, because there's no need to circulate his picture, and until we know for sure, I wouldn't want to anyway. He, a 23-year-old young man who, of course, trying to protect himself and the group of people he was with, made the decision to shoot someone that he thought was trying to rob him with a deadly weapon. Police say they are still investigating the self-defense claim. Most people that have heard this story have been real wrapped up in where is the channel of Timothy Wilkes, etc. There was another YouTube channel that was being put out there as, oh, this was a white guy who would go into the ghetto, quote unquote, and he deserved to die. And there was a lot of excitement around this story when seemingly it was this white boy who had went into a ghetto, even though it was not a ghetto, it was a business, and had been killed for trying to upset African Americans. When in reality, it seems now that it was a African American victim and an African American shooter, and suddenly people have lost interest. And I think that is pretty shocking, pretty damning. Some are even wondering if there's some type of cover-up going on. I've not seen any indication of that. It just seems like once it no longer was stupid white YouTuber dies in prank gone wrong, people just lost interest. Now, for it being a YouTube prank, the grandmother of Timothy Wilkes, who did the interview with the Tennessean, who talked about how her son was, she didn't want people to think of him as some thug. He was a very bright individual who made, obviously, a horrible mistake, but that she was not familiar with him having any involvement in YouTube. So there's the chance that this was simply a robbery. Even though he was a young man, Timothy Wilkes, who held a job, who was a month away from his certificate in HVAC. There's the possibility that this could have been a simple robbery. Still, there's the possibility there that it was a prank gone wrong. Other people have said in the comments on some of my videos, and I've seen elsewhere, that perhaps he was going to get a channel started. And that's a thing too. He didn't have to have an already existing channel. But I wish I had more information to bring to you. But we just don't. There has been utter silence, and I have never seen so much silence around what had been a worldwide story for at least a few days. And then nothing. Just absolutely nothing. So we know what happened, we know when it happened, we know how it happened, we know that the friend, who has still been unidentified by police, the friend told police that it had been a YouTube prank gone wrong. So obviously we can understand that the friend would possibly, if it was a robbery, would be looking for some sort of excuse. We know that David Starnes Jr. said, absolutely, I'm the shooter. I did it to defend myself. He was there waiting for police as well. Now, the police clearly believed all the individuals on the scene, or they would have made some sort of arrest, and they didn't. So I'm not thinking that necessarily anybody's lying. I do feel it's very odd that we have not heard anything else. Very odd. And the moment we do, I'll do a follow-up video. But for anybody that was still wondering what is going on with this, nothing. Nothing is. Thanks, everybody.